Today we are covering the element of color. Color is one of the elements. If you recall back, we did not cover color a lot at that point because color is so important it needs to have a section devoted to it on its own. Color is a powerful tool. Color organizes. It creates emotions. It draws attention. It is by far one of the most important elements that you are using. Color is created through light. White light contains all of the colors. You see a rainbow because light passes through the rain like it passes through a prism, and it separates into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Paint, crayons, and the stuff that uses pigment, which is everything you use except for on screen, uses something called subtractive color. What makes the color is the light reflecting back at you. This is the color wheel you learned in grade school. Red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. To see red, the pigment in the paint or the crayon or whatever you're using absorbs all the other colors and reflects back the red light. Blue absorbs everything but blue light and reflects it back to you. Why don't you see colors well when it starts to get dark? Because there's a lack of light to reflect. On the color wheel you have red, yellow, and blue. Those are our primary colors. If you mix red and yellow, you get orange. Red and blue will give you violet. Blue and yellow mix and you get green. Compare that with the rainbow and you'll see all of the same colors are there. If you stack a rainbow, you would go from violet to red and then start over again. The difference is that light is additive. All the light together is white. But when we use pigment, all the colors together make black. It's black because no colors can be reflected back at you, and all of the light gets absorbed. In printing, we don't use the exact same color wheel. We use cyan, magenta, and yellow. The colors are a little bit different. They're really more closely aligned with the light prism. Green, yellow, red, magenta, blue, cyan. They sort of overlap each other. Our standard color wheel, and this is using red, green, and blue. Red and green together produce yellow. Red and blue produces magenta. Blue and green produce cyan. Additive color mixing, when you mix everything together, is white light, separated out into red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow as the secondary colors. Subtractive color mixing, we have in print cyan, magenta, and yellow, green, blue, red, and black. The colors are there, they're just in a different organization. With additive colors, which is what we use for screen, we project colored light. With additive colors, which is what we use for screen, we project colored light. For LED screens and old picture tubes and your phone, you don't project all the colors, you project red, green, and blue. RGB. Blue and red make magenta, blue and green make cyan, which is a lighter blue. Now on the subtractive color, yes, if you put all the colors together you get black. But we use so much ink trying to create that black that we actually just use black ink, and it makes it a little bit easier and faster drying time for the printer. We've already talked about the primary colors of red, blue, and yellow. They form what's called a triad. Mix equal amounts of red and blue to get violet. Mix blue and yellow to get green, red and yellow, and get orange. Violet, orange, and green are secondary colors. If you split the difference again, you will get tertiary colors. They are named in a particular order, with the primary color coming first, followed by the secondary color. So between yellow and green we have yellow-green. Between green and blue we have blue-green. Between violet and blue we have blue-violet. Red-violet between red and violet. Red-orange between red and orange. Yellow-orange between orange and yellow. Colors have three different properties: the hue, which is the actual name of the color itself, value, and saturation. So hue, being the name, would be red, orange, green. Value is the light and darkness. The lighter the color, the higher the value. The darker the color, the lower the value. So the outer ring on a color wheel shows the pure color, the pure hue. The next ring inside shows the tint. Adding white to a color creates the tint. The color wheel will only show you one tint, and it's midway between the pure hue and white. You can control how light the tint is by how much white is added to it. The next section on the color wheel contains a tone. A tone is created by blending the hue with gray or by adding the complementary color to it. The complementary color is the color that is directly opposite it. So to get the tone for green, you would add either gray or you would add red to it. Again, the tone that is shown is halfway between the hue and 50% gray. The inside section of the color wheel shows shades. A shade is created by adding black. The color wheel shows midway between black and the hue again, and again you control how dark that gets by how much black you add to it. So remember, we have the hue or the name, and the names are logical. Again, things like yellow-orange. You don't have orange-yellow, you have yellow-orange. And blue-green. Then we have saturation, which is how pure the color is. Is it a tint? Is it a tone? Is it a shade? We then have brightness. Is it dark or is it light? What is the value associated with it? The color wheel is arranged so that we can combine hues to create harmonious color combinations. Each section or wedge represents that color family. We can use a single color family with all of its shades, tints, and tones and have a lovely design. Complementary colors are the ones that are directly across from each other. Yellow and violet, green and red, blue and orange. We also have triads. Red, yellow, and blue is a triad. You can move this triad, rotating it around the color wheel to come up with other color combinations. Mixing colors that are next to each other on the color wheel will make in-between colors, and using them creates unity. So if you use blue, blue-violet, and violet, and all the colors that you can get in between, you're using analogous colors. A split complementary like this would use blue-violet and blue-green and combine that with orange. I know that's not the colors you're seeing up here, but it gives you the idea. These are some of the common color harmonies, and you can apply these combinations to any part of the color wheel and guarantee that you'll produce a harmonious color scheme. Colors are also divided again into warm and cool. Green and violet are the ones that are on the edge of this division, and whether they're warm or cool really is going to depend on the colors that they're around. So warm colors are going to be the reds and the yellows. Cool colors are blues. But then, to make things even worse, within each color there are warm and cool colors. So you can have a warm red or a cool red, a warm blue or a cool blue. Gets complicated, doesn't it? Color is also dependent on the colors around it. Compare these images. So you need to know how your color selections will react. You need to design for legibility as well. But look at these color combinations. Depending on what the colors are laid against, like in this example, these inside rectangles are both the same color, but they don't look the same because of the colors that they are placed inside of. Just as these two colors are exactly the same, but they don't look the same because of what they're placed inside of. Color can appear different depending on its surroundings. And again, legibility. White on red is going to pop. Green on red, however, can cause a problem with legibility. A lack of contrast in lightness and darkness can make something difficult to read. And then on top of all of that, you really need to avoid colors that have the exact same value. 5 to 10% of the U.S. population suffers from some type of color blindness, and we don't want to create designs that cannot be read. If you cannot read the numbers that are inside these circles, you might suffer from some type of color blindness. Color also has meaning. Color has a history behind it. So avocado green, harvest gold, and copper brown were very popular colors in the 1970s. Using pinks and turquoises with black particularly evoke the 1950s. Every decade has its own color palette. So every color has a meaning tied to it. And all of those meanings are tied to the culture that you're in. We need to be careful when we are selecting colors because a color that means one thing in our culture might mean something else in another culture. Make sure you read your book. It covers this topic well. Make sure you're reading both books because I do have chapters assigned to you out of both books. In our culture, we dress brides in white. In China, brides often wear red because red is a color that symbolizes good fortune. And in the Pacific Rim, white is the color of mourning. Well, Americans and Europeans connect mourning with the color black. So there is a lot that depends on your color choices. So use color wisely.